Stopwatch Savior. That's an interesting title. Jason, you've written about this in this chapter. What do you mean by that, Stopwatch Savior? What's the idea behind that title?
I think sometimes in our culture, we oftentimes think that everything's got to be done fast. We want fast food, we want fast lanes, we want the carpool lane, we want a TiVo so we can watch our television shows faster. But the reality is a stopwatch Savior is not who we serve. God is not up in heaven with a stopwatch, hoping, wanting, and waiting for people to make that fast decision. And so what we have to do is look at people and their journey in God's time frame, not our own.
So you're saying sometimes we might push too hard maybe with people, that we really have a hunger to see them come to faith, but there's a process and a timing involved in that, and we need to be patient. God's time is also at play, and sometimes His time doesn't fit our schedule, but it's totally on time. And so we have to be careful when we work with people that we don't push too hard, but we walk with them in relationship along the way. We're right in front of an iconic monument of sorts here, Lombard Street in San Francisco. There is no way to navigate that road quickly. You got to navigate it, take the turns, and take your time. And in some ways, that's what life's like. There's turns in the road. We have to be patient, let God lead us. Let's walk safely in it. If we try to rush it too fast, we can subvert the whole process. And it's all with good intentions sometimes. We have the best intentions.
I think the reality is when you think about people's journey that they're on, if we truly have no agenda, then time should really be irrelevant, because the reality is one day to us could be 1,000 years to God and vice versa. So we need to look at it through the eyes of God, be patient, and know that God is loving and wooing people, and we just get to have the privilege of being the best version of ourselves in front of Him. And when that happens, there is no stopwatch according to the Savior.
One of the topics in the love chapter, even in 1 Corinthians 13, it talks about that love is patient. And that's a part of what we want to express in our walk with people, and what we do walking alongside of them is to be patient. They're in process. So we don't want to invite them to make a decision if it's not the right moment. There is a right moment, and we need to be sensitive to that. But it might take a while with some people, and we can't bail on them if they don't answer the question right. Maybe we do invite them and they don't respond, like maybe it's not their time, and maybe they say no. Well, it's not our time to walk away. And I think we've seen that happen at times where we bail on people before the season is right, before the harvest is ripe, in a sense. We need to be careful that we take the journey with them as long as it takes.
Walk life out with people, love them right where they are, and be okay with the journey that they're on. When that happens, there is no stopwatch running the clock. There is no microwave to this process, but more or less it's just doing a journey, doing life with people.
Sometimes you find yourself in relationship with people that you never expected, people that are on a really interesting path in life, and it's really miraculous connections that God brings into our life. Some of those it really isn't even right for us to talk about, because the people you're walking with and working with are still in the process, and we don't want to bring that out into the light for other people to know or whatever, because it's just a positive journey that we're on. But you've learned how to walk that out and just see how God's process takes its place.
It's been so interesting, because there's been these times where I'll just be on a journey and I'll be exploring friendship with people, and lo and behold, they'll ask me about my faith. Come to find out that maybe a decade before they started the journey, and I just had the privilege to join them in maybe that last season. And you talked about asking the question. There's been many times where they've asked me the question. They said, I want to know, what time does church start? I want to know, what does it mean to follow God? What does it mean to understand the cross? And they'll have questions that have worked on their hearts for years. And then there's been times where I've planted seed and I've nurtured it, and I've walked life out with people without an agenda, just loving them, never seeing the result, only to find out years later that they came to a knowledge of God. Why? Because there was no stopwatch on them. That everybody's on a different journey. Some people, it's very quick, it's very instantaneous, and for others, it may take a decade, it may take multiple decades, but when it comes to God's love, it always works.
And it never quits. Love never stops in the journey. I remember being with Dick Foth. He has been working a lot in Washington, D.C. with leaders, world leaders, and people in national office and stuff. They meet in small groups, they meet one-on-one, and they meet with people that don't have faith in God but are open, interested, and they just invite them to consider the journey of who Jesus is. I remember him saying to me one time, someone knew of a person he was walking with who wasn't a follower of Jesus. And this person said, man, you've been walking with him so long, when are you going to seal the deal?
Right.
It's like, well, what do you mean, seal the deal? When are you going to pray the prayer? You know, you got to get him to pray that prayer. And Dick Foth, I admire and respect so much. Very sincere, honorable man of faith. And he said, you know what? That's not what it's about, to seal the deal. That's God's business. And it's my job to love this man, to walk with him as long as it takes. And God knows the time and the season, and it's going to come about. There's just no fear in feeling like that's not going to happen. But love says, I'm going to journey with you,
right,
and I'm not going to give up on you no matter what happens and no matter how long it takes. So it's going to happen. Just don't quit. Just don't give up. And we want to encourage you to consider who you can walk with in the journey that's ahead of you. Who can you help? Who can you journey with and not give up on? In fact, as you discuss this in your group today, talk about that. Who is it in your life that you know is not a person of faith yet, but you have a relationship with, and that you can love them by being patient with them? You can love them by getting involved in their life and getting to know who they are. How would you suggest doing that when you have someone you have great concern for, you hope and pray that they come to faith? How would you process that? What would be the way to go about that and walking with them?
Most simply put, the best way to do it is just to invest in people's physical needs. Jesus never asserted a spiritual solution without first having a physical meeting of the need. Then secondly, invite them into your journey. And the last and most important is, no matter where they are, just include them. They may not look like or talk like, act like, think like, or even believe like you, but they can be included on your journey.
So start your discussion today with that in mind. Who is it in your life? You can talk about, share what God is doing to bring you into their world, and how you can walk with them in a very systematic, very purposeful, yet very patient and loving way. Don't rush it. We're not on a stopwatch. Jesus is involved in their life, and he knows perfectly the timing, and we're a part of it, you're a part of it, and it's an exciting thing to be a part of. So let's keep working together. We're going to see many people come into our family of faith, come into our lives as we keep them on our heart and keep praying for them. In fact, that'd be another thing. Pray for those people today. When you talk about them, let's have a prayer time where we ask God to open their heart and draw them into that place of decision. So have a great week, and we're looking forward to everything that's ahead of us.